Good morning, students. Welcome to your e-learning class of class 12th. As you know, we have here two books. The first and the main book is Flamingo, and the another one is Vistas, which is your supplementary book. So, we will start from the main book, which is Flamingo, and the name of its first lesson is the last lesson. Yeah, it is very ridiculous that the name of the first lesson is the last lesson, but it is. It is written by Alphonse Doudet, a great novelist and writer of French language. So, we will start from its background, and it is an anti-war story. Anti-war story means at that time wars were frequently fought, and the story has a basis of that war. The name of war is Franco-Prussian War. It was fought from 19th July 1870 to 10th May 1871. Here, the main idea is linguistic identity. Linguistic identity means you are well known to your language. If you are avoided, you are barred to your language, you are not asked to speak your own language, then what's your value? What's your value? Means you don't have your identity because you are known from your culture, your language. So it is called linguistic identity. Alsace and Lorraine are two regions which are captured by Germans. Earlier they were called Prussian, and the orders from German capital Berlin came that French will never be taught here again, only German will be taught. So now we come to the point that is your story, and your story starts from a class. Here the two characters which are main. The first one is Mr. M. Hamel, who is a French teacher and a student. His name is French. So the story starts that French started for school very late that morning. He was in the habit of doing that. He was always late, and that day also he was late. He was afraid of being scolded because M. Hamel was to question them on participles. It was his homework, and he did not know the first word about them because he hadn't learned anything about it as usual, because he was a lazy guy and he never bothered to learn his own language. He thought of running away and spending the day out of doors. The warm, bright day, the chirping birds, and the Prussian soldiers drilling in the open field back of the sawmill were tempting. He always tempted to these kind of things, as he was not interested in learning French and tempted to other things. But he resisted the temptation and hurried off to the school because he had to go to school, otherwise he would have been punished. So there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board near the town hall. On the way he saw Watcher, the blacksmith, asked French not to go so fast. He assured the boy that he would get to his school in plenty of time. Usually, there was a great bustle when the school began, but that day everything was as quiet as Sunday morning, because It was not like the other days, as the orders, as I had told you earlier, that the French will never be taught again. And that's what the main point which was going to be happened in the school. Through the window, French saw his classmates already in their places, and M. Hamel walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler under his arms. French opened the door and went in. He was supposing that he would be punished, but it was different at that day. He blushed and was frightened. M. Hamel very kindly asked him to go to his place. It was amazing for him because he was a rude teacher and a very strict teacher. He always punished the students who made any kind of mistake, but it was not so at that time. Frank noticed that their teacher had put on his beautiful green coat, his frilled shirt, and the little black silk cap, all embroidered. He wrote these only in inspection and prize days, or any special day, you can say. That dress he used to wear on occasionally any special day. The village people were sitting quietly on the usually empty back benches, who were not supposed to be there, but they were there because it was the last day of French class, and everybody was there. Even the elders of the village were there. Everybody looked sad, and Hauser had brought an old primer who was a painter, carpenter, and he came there with his equipments. M. Hamel said that it was the last lesson he would give them, because from then the only German would be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. The new master would come the next day. This was their last lesson of French. He wanted them to be very attentive. He was very sad also, and he wanted the villagers to be very quiet and attentive to learn their own language. French felt sorry that he had not learned his lessons properly. He was given to learn prepositions, participles, which he had not learned. The idea that M. Hamel was going away made the narrator forget all about his ruler and how cranky he was. Now, French understood why M. Hamel had put on his fine Sunday clothes and why the old men of the village were sitting there. They had come to thank the master of his 40 years faithful service. He was teaching there for a long time, for 40 years there. And the villagers also came to respect him. And for a teacher, this is the most respectable thing, that the students would be silent and attentive as M. Hamel wanted. Then he talked of the French language, the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest, the most logical. The language is always beautiful, but everybody thinks his language is beautiful. So he also thought that. He asked them to guard it among them and never forget it. Because whenever a person is away from his language, the person is away from his culture, his tradition, and you can say his existence also. Because you are well known from this language, your tradition, your culture. If you forget your culture, then you are forgetting yourself. Then they had lesson in grammar and writing. French noticed pigeons could very low on the roof. He thought that would these pigeons also be taught to speak in German? No. Pigeons are here the symbol of freedom because they don't have anything which can be enforced. Means they have their own language and we can't teach them to speak in any language, French or German or English. They are the symbol of freedom. They don't have any kind of boundaries. So here the pigeons are the symbol of freedom. All the while M. Hamel was sitting motionless in his chair and gazing at one thing or the other. His sister was packing their trunks in the room above as they had to leave the country next day. After writing, they had a lesson in history and then the babies chanted their ba, be, bi, bo, boo. It is their own language and something is there, the poem like or the syllables. Even old Hauser was crying, means everyone was sad, even the elders of the village and the people who were not literate, even they were crying because if you have anything then you don't value it. The language which was with them, they never valued it, and now when it was going away from them, they started valuing it. All at once the church clock struck 12 and then the midday prayers. At the same moment, the trumpets of the Prussians returning from drill sounded under the windows, and it was the time when the class was going to be closed. Then he took a piece of chalk and wrote on the blackboard as large as he could, Vive la France. It means long live France. And without saying a single word after that, he went from there. So, you understood the story, what happened here, and now we will come to the moral of the story. We must know the moral of the story and we must know how to analyze the story. The moral is that you must stick upon your own culture, your own tradition, which is very good. You must know your identity. What is your identity? For what you all are known. You must know it because your culture, your tradition, your language are your identities. And you must know through them you have your existence, and if you forget any of these things you must losing your you must be losing your existence. Thank you.